The day Amara set her family's kitchen ablaze while trying to boil an egg was the day her parents knew something had to change drastically. Amara was a 25-year-old girl who lived in a sprawling mansion in the heart of Lagos, Nigeria. Her parents, Mr. and Mrs. Adeyemi, were incredibly wealthy business tycoons who had built an empire in oil and gas. From the day Amara was born, she had been showered with everything money could buy: designer clothes, luxury cars, exotic vacations, you name it, Amara had it. Growing up, Amara never had to lift a finger. There were maids to clean her room, cooks to prepare her meals, and drivers to take her wherever she wanted to go. She spent her days shopping, partying with friends, and lounging by the pool. The concept of work or responsibility was as foreign to her as the idea of walking on the moon. Every morning, Amara would wake up around noon, her silk eye mask still in place. She would lazily reach for her diamond-encrusted phone and scroll through social media for an hour before calling for her personal maid, Blessing. Blessing, she would yell, her voice echoing through the mansion. "Bring me my breakfast." Blessing would hurry in with a tray laden with fresh fruits, pancakes, and freshly squeezed orange juice. As Amara ate, Blessing would lay out her clothes for the day and tidy up the room. After breakfast, Amara would spend hours getting ready. She would try on dozens of outfits before settling on one, leaving a mess of discarded clothes for Blessing to clean up. Then she would head out to meet her equally spoiled friends for lunch at the most expensive restaurant in town. This routine continued day after day, year after year. Amara's parents, busy with their business empire, hardly noticed how helpless and dependent their daughter had become. They were content knowing she was safe and had everything she could ever want. But everything changed on Amara's 25th birthday. The Adeyemis threw a lavish party for their daughter. The guest list included Nigeria's elite politicians, businessmen, and celebrities. The mansion was decorated with thousands of roses, and a famous chef was flown in from Paris to prepare the menu. As the party was in full swing, Amara found herself in a conversation with Zainab, the daughter of her father's business partner. Zainab was the same age as Amara but couldn't have been more different. "So, what do you do?" Amara Zainab asked politely. Amara looked confused. "What do you mean, for work or study? What keeps you busy?" Amara laughed. "Oh, I don't need to work. My parents take care of everything." Zainab nodded, a hint of pity in her eyes. "I see. Well, I just finished my master's in business administration. I'm starting an internship at my father's company next month." Amara felt a twinge of something unfamiliar. Was it embarrassment? She quickly changed the subject, but the conversation stuck with her. Later that night, after all the guests had left, Amara overheard her parents talking in the study. "Did you see Zainab?" her father was saying. "So accomplished and mature. I wish Amara would show some interest in something other than shopping and partying." Her mother sighed. "I know. Maybe we've made a mistake, giving her everything without expecting anything in return." Amara felt a surge of anger. How dare they compare her to Zainab? She stormed off to her room, slamming the door behind her. The next morning, determined to prove her parents wrong, Amara decided she would cook breakfast for them. How hard could it be? She made her way to the kitchen, shooing away the surprised cook. "I'll handle breakfast today," she said confidently. Amara stood in the middle of the kitchen, suddenly realizing she had no idea where to start. She had never even turned on a stove before. After some fumbling, she managed to find a pot and filled it with water. She placed it on the stove and turned the knob to what she thought was the right setting. Next, she took an egg from the fridge. She had seen the cook crack eggs into a pan before, so she tried to copy that. Unfortunately, she brought the egg down so hard that it smashed, shell and all, onto the counter. Frustrated, she tried again with another egg. This time, she managed to get most of the egg into a pan, along with a good number of shell pieces. She put the pan on another burner and turned it on. Feeling proud of herself, Amara decided to make some toast as well. She put 2 slices of bread into the toaster and pushed the lever down. Then she went to the living room to check her phone while waiting for everything to cook. She got so engrossed in her social media that she completely forgot about the food. It wasn't until she smelled smoke that she remembered. Amara ran back to the kitchen to find it filled with thick, black smoke. The pot of water had boiled dry and was now red hot. The pan with the egg was smoking, the egg now a black, crusty mess stuck to the bottom, and the toaster was shooting flames, the bread inside having caught fire. Panicking, Amara grabbed the pot of water, forgetting it was hot. She yelped in pain and dropped it, sending the red-hot pot clattering across the floor, leaving burn marks on the expensive tiles. She then grabbed a towel to try and smother the flames in the toaster, but the towel caught fire too. Screaming, she threw the burning towel into the sink and turned on the tap. By this time, the smoke alarm was blaring, and her parents came running into the kitchen. They found Amara standing in the middle of the chaos, coughing and crying, with burn marks on the floor, a ruined pan on the stove, and a smoking toaster in the sink. Meals were an adventure. After the egg incident, Amara was scared of the stove, so she stuck to making sandwiches. But even that proved challenging. She cut her finger while slicing tomatoes and put so much mayo on her sandwich that it squirted out everywhere when she took a bite. Her mother tried to teach her how to cook simple meals, but Amara found it all very confusing. She couldn't understand why you couldn't just throw everything into a pot and hope for the best. One day, while attempting to make chicken stew, Amara had what she thought was a brilliant idea. She remembered seeing a cool video online where someone used soda in cooking. Without consulting her mother, she grabbed a bottle of Fanta from the fridge and poured it into the stew. Her mother walked in just as Amara was stirring the bright orange mixture. "What on earth are you doing?" she asked, eyes wide with horror. "I'm making Fanta chicken stew," Amara said proudly. "It's going to be amazing." Her mother was too shocked to stop her. She watched in disbelief as Amara continued to cook, adding spices and vegetables to the sugary, orange mess. When the stew was done, Amara insisted that everyone try it. Her father took one bite and started coughing violently. Her mother politely ate a spoonful and then quickly drank a whole bottle of water. Even Amara, after tasting her creation, had to admit it was horrible. But something changed that day. For the first time, Amara felt genuinely bad about not being able to do something well. She saw how hard her parents were trying to teach her, and she felt ashamed of her laziness and incompetence. From that day on, Amara started to pay more attention during cooking lessons. She asked questions, took notes, and practiced every day. She made many mistakes burning rice, oversalting soups, and once even mistaking salt for sugar while baking a cake. But she didn't give up. As weeks passed, Amara slowly began to improve. She learned how to boil water without burning the pot. She figured out how to make simple meals like jollof rice and egusi soup. She even started to enjoy cooking, finding it satisfying to create something with her own hands. As Amara learned to cook, she also started to pick up other skills. She asked the gardener to teach her about plants, and soon she was tending to her own little vegetable patch. She learned how to do laundry properly, how to iron clothes without burning them, and even how to change a light bulb. Her parents watched her progress with pride and a bit of amazement. They saw how Amara was changing, becoming more responsible and independent. They started to include her in discussions about their business, teaching her about money management and work ethics. Amara's transformation didn't go unnoticed by her friends. Some of them laughed at her for doing poor people's work, but Amara didn't care. She felt proud of her new skills and the way she was growing as a person. One day, Amara decided to host a dinner party for her friends. She spent days planning the menu and preparing everything herself. When her friends arrived, they were skeptical. But as they tasted the food, perfectly cooked jollof rice, creamy pepper soup, and a moist chocolate cake for dessert, their doubts disappeared. "Amara, this is amazing," her best friend, Kioma, exclaimed. "Where did you learn to cook like this?" Amara smiled. "I learned from my mom, and from making a lot of mistakes." "Did you know I once made chicken stew with Fanta?" Her friends laughed, but there was a new respect in their eyes. They saw that Amara had changed, and it made them rethink their own lives. As the months passed, Amara continued to grow and learn. She started volunteering at a local orphanage, teaching cooking classes to the children there. She even began to take an interest in her parents' business, shadowing her father at work and asking intelligent questions. On her 26th birthday, instead of the usual lavish party, Amara asked for something different. She wanted to cook a meal for her family and closest friends, all by herself. Her parents agreed, touched by how far their daughter had come. Amara spent days preparing, carefully selecting recipes and ingredients. On the day of the dinner, she woke up early and spent hours in the kitchen, cooking up a feast. When the guests arrived, they were greeted by the delicious aroma of Amara's cooking. She had prepared a full Nigerian spread: jollof rice, pepper soup, grilled fish, moi moi, and even pounded yam. For dessert, she had made a beautiful passion fruit cake. As everyone sat down to eat, Amara felt a sense of pride she had never experienced before. Watching her parents and friends enjoy the meal she had prepared with her own hands was more satisfying than any designer outfit or luxury car had ever been. After dinner, Amara's father stood up to make a toast. "A year ago," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "our Amara couldn't even boil water without setting off the fire alarm. Today she has prepared this incredible meal for us. But more than that, She has grown into a responsible, capable young woman. We are so proud of you, Amara." Tears filled Amara's eyes as everyone raised their glasses. She thought about how much she had changed in just 1 year. She was no longer the spoiled girl who couldn't do anything for herself. She was now a confident, independent woman, ready to make her mark on the world. As she went to bed that night, Amara felt truly happy and fulfilled. She knew that her journey was just beginning, and she was excited to see what else she could learn and achieve. The girl who once cooked with Fanta had become a symbol of transformation and growth. Amara's story spread through their community, inspiring other young people to learn important life skills, regardless of their background or wealth. In the end, Amara realized that true wealth wasn't just about money in the bank or things you could buy. It was about being able to take care of yourself and others, about learning and growing every day. And she was thankful for the lesson that a bottle of Fanta, a burnt pot of water, and a nearly burned-down kitchen had taught her. As Amara drifted off to sleep, she smiled, wondering what new adventure tomorrow would bring. She was ready for whatever life had in store, armed with her newfound skills, confidence, and a determination to never stop learning and growing. A year had passed since Amara's transformative journey began. Now 27, she had grown into a capable and confident young woman. Her days of being the spoiled, helpless rich girl were long behind her. However, life had more lessons in store for Amara, and her journey was far from over. One sunny morning, Amara's father called her into his study. His face was serious as he gestured for her to sit down. "Amara," he began, "your mother and I have been talking. We're so proud of how much you've grown this past year. We think it's time for you to take the next step." Amara looked at him curiously. "What do you mean, Dad?" Her father took a deep breath. "We want you to move out and live on your own for a while. We found a small apartment in a middle-class neighborhood. We won't be providing any financial support beyond the rent for 6 months. It's time for you to experience real independence." Amara's jaw dropped. Leave their mansion? Live in a small apartment? Support herself financially? The idea both terrified and excited her. "But Dad," she protested weakly, "I don't know if I'm ready for that." Her father smiled kindly. "That's exactly why you need to do it, sweetheart. You've come so far, but there's still so much for you to learn about the real world." And so, 2 weeks later, Amara found herself standing in a small, bare apartment in a busy part of Lagos. It was nothing like the luxurious mansion she had grown up in. The paint was peeling in places. The furniture was old and worn, and she could hear the noise of traffic outside. As she looked around the tiny living room, reality began to sink in. This was her home now. She had to make it work. The first few weeks were challenging. Amara had to learn to budget her money carefully. She couldn't just buy whatever she wanted anymore. She had to think about things like groceries, electricity bills, and transportation costs. One day, while trying to save money on laundry, Amara decided to wash her clothes by hand. She filled the bathtub with water and detergent and threw in all her clothes together, whites, colors, and delicates. The result was a disaster. All her white clothes turned a muddy gray, and her favorite silk blouse was ruined. Amara sat on the bathroom floor, surrounded by her ruined clothes, and cried. She felt overwhelmed and alone. But then she remembered how far she had come. She had learned to cook to clean, to take care of herself. She could learn this too. The next day, Amara went to a nearby laundromat. She asked the owner to teach her how to use the machines properly and how to sort her clothes. It was a humbling experience, but Amara was determined to learn. As weeks turned into months, Amara settled into her new life. She learned to cook meals on a budget, using cheaper ingredients but still making them tasty. She became friends with her neighbors, regular people who worked hard for a living. She began to understand the value of money in a way she never had before. One day, Amara's old friend Kioma came to visit. Kioma looked around the small apartment with poorly disguised disdain. "Oh, Amara," she said, "how can you live like this? Why don't you just ask your parents to move you back home?" Amara smiled. "You know, Kioma, I've learned more in these few months than I did in years of living in luxury. I'm happy here." Kioma looked at her as if she had grown two heads. She couldn't understand how Amara could be happy in this simple life. But as they talked, Kioma began to see a change in her friend. Amara seemed more grounded, more confident, more real. As months passed, Amara faced more challenges. Her refrigerator broke down, and she had to figure out how to get it repaired on a tight budget. She experienced a power outage that lasted for days, teaching her the importance of being prepared. She even had to deal with a noisy neighbor, learning the art of diplomatic confrontation. But with each challenge, Amara grew stronger and more capable. She started to take pride in solving problems on her own, without running to her parents for help. 6 months flew by, and soon it was time for Amara's parents to stop paying her rent. Amara knew she had to find a job. Despite her progress, the idea of working terrified her. She had never had a real job before. Amara spent days polishing her resume and applying for jobs. She faced numerous rejections, each one stinging but also strengthening her resolve. Finally, she landed an entry-level position at a local non-profit organization that focused on education for underprivileged children. The job was challenging. Amara had to wake up early, commute on crowded buses, and work long hours. But she found the work fulfilling in a way she had never experienced before. She realized how much her life had changed in just 2 years. From a spoiled rich girl who couldn't even boil water, she had transformed into an independent woman who could take care of herself and contribute to society. On her birthday, instead of the lavish parties of the past, Amara invited her parents to her small apartment for dinner. She cooked a simple but delicious meal, using skills she had honed over the past 2 years. As they sat around her small dining table, Amara's father raised his glass. To Amara, he said, his eyes shining with pride, "Who has shown us all the true meaning of growth and resilience." Amara felt tears in her eyes as she looked at her parents. "Thank you," she said softly. "Thank you for pushing me out of my comfort zone. I never knew I could be this person." Her mother reached out and squeezed her hand. "We always knew you had it in you, sweetheart. You just needed the chance to discover it for yourself." As Amara went to bed that night, She thought about her journey, from burning water and cooking with Fanta to living independently and making a difference in children's lives. She had come so far, and yet she knew this was just the beginning. She fell asleep with a smile on her face, excited for what the future held. The spoiled rich girl was gone, replaced by a strong, independent woman ready to take on the world. And it all started with a burnt pot of water and a bottle of Fanta.